Hello class and hello professor, my name's Joshua Richardson and today I'm going to be talking a bit about a digital existence, specifically focused on social media and the post-human identity. So let's get right into it. What does it mean to be post-human? I define it as a post-human world as the idea that humans will have become so far gone with technology and their digital presence that we can no longer be recognized for our biological, autonomous, and human identity and, just the things that make us human and kind of make us flawed. I believe there are four main components to this idea: the technological integration, digital existence, philosophical and ethical changes, and the impact it has on our environment. Social media has moved us, for sure, to the cusp of a digital existence and the reconstruction of what we know and how we're familiar with our human identity. Digital existence and identity. So humans' ever-growing presence on social media has definitely changed our self-identity and sense of self through things like comparison, toxic virtual spaces, and an exceeding level of media exposure from a young age. Kids nowadays, you walk through the mall, you can see kids in prams with the iPhone 13s and they're scrolling and their dopamine receptors are just being fired in a way that most kids have never really experienced. Only if you're playing with colorful toys or something like that as a kid. Nowadays, they're getting right onto social media and they grow up to feel things like depression, loneliness, envy, jealousy, anxiety, sleep disorders, and self-esteem issues. Studies have shown that the use and experiences of social media use can lead to all of the above mentioned issues. So why is this important? Why do we care about this? More than 5 billion people use social media worldwide, including children, adults, elderly. Younger people state that they feel more genuine connection nowadays online compared to the real world, which a couple years ago, that would just not be the case. You were kind of laughed at, called a nerd or whatever if you were online too much, go out, touch some grass. And now it seems like, some people need genuine connection through online spaces. Realizing the difference between real and digital identities is happening less and less. So people aren't able to differentiate real and digital identities. So that things get very misconstrued, and that's where identity starts to fall apart. So my research finding, number one, I thought was very interesting, is Facebook owner Meta says that its AI now catches about 90% of terms of service violations, many of which are the worst humanity has to offer. Simply horrific. The remaining 10% have been contracted out to firms such as Accenture. Accenture cannot keep employees on the content monitoring team longer than 45 to 90 days due to the heinous nature of the content itself. Turnover of these teams is 300% to 400% annum. That's from Anderson and Rain 2023, an article talking about just the kind of dark sides of social media. And, anytime you've seen an inappropriate video or like a violent video of war or nudity or anything like that, just graphic, gory content, it'll be taken down very quickly, but someone working for Meta or contracted by Meta had to watch that first and decide whether or not it was inappropriate. So think of the worst things you've ever seen. Someone has to sit in an office and watch those every day, non-stop, no break. That's their job, you know what I mean? To kind of clean up the internet, the space a little bit. But you got to wonder, what does that do to a person watching these types of things day in and day out? What type of people and identities does that create? My second research finding was aggression, hate speech, and toxicity. Many interactions on social media are increasingly characterized by growing aggressiveness. This applies not only to topics that tend to be explosive or controversial like politics, but also to more trivial and basic matters like food. You could post anything on social media and you'll go look in the comments. It'll be a video of a kid doing something. You'll look in the comments and there's people saying just very, very disgusting things, bullying, making fun of this kid or just making fun of anyone on the internet, the way they talk, the way they look, anything. And it's not just funny anymore. It's just aggressive. You're noticing the aggressiveness is kind of increasing, and we're kind of there's a bit of an attitude going on with the internet, and it seems to be accelerating. My third research finding is, insofar as we know ourselves in both formal discourse, for example biology, and in daily practice, we find ourselves to be cyborgs, hybrids, mosaics, chimeras. Biological organisms have become biotic systems, communications devices like others. That was from Haraway, a Cyborg Manifesto. She's basically saying that we understand who we are and what we are, both in science and everyday life. But that has changed. So how we understand that's changed. We are no longer purely natural, purely human. Instead, we're blended beings, part biological, and it almost feels like we're part machine and part digital, part virtual. We're not only shaped by the real world anymore, we're shaped by many systems, and that can lead to some pretty crazy things. Even our bodies are now understood as systems, like machines with inputs, outputs, and processes, rather than just natural beings like animals, you know. She's pointing out that we function like technology, especially in how we send, receive, and we process others' information, like digital platforms or computers. So we don't have mechanical parts, but we definitely are starting to look and kind of relate to the idea of a cyborg. So what are the ethical implications of these research findings and this topic in general? Some of the concerns that I instantly thought of with social media and just the direction we seem to be heading is massive mental health concerns, especially in younger kids who are susceptible. They go play Roblox and they hear outrageous stuff on the video game that's meant for kids, you know. Second biggest thing that I've noticed as well is desensitization, especially to violence. And, you know, I'll be scrolling on Instagram sometimes and I'll just get a video of like people, you know, beating the hell out of each other, you know, and obviously there's a difference between street fighting and UFC, but, you know, for some people that used to really shock them, seeing someone get hit around, smacked around, maybe a bit of blood, and now it seems like we watch it for sport. Violence is kind of interesting. You know, if you see a fight, a crowd gathers around, and in a couple years, how far are we willing to take the desensitization? How far will we go just to be excited? You know, the Hunger Games kind of talked about that. I believe in the future we'll have something like the Hunger Games. We'll get bored of regular fights and we'll want to see, we'll want to be more excited. People will kind of want to quench their thirst for, you know, excitement, and that could lead to people just killing each other for entertainment. The third one is exploitation of people's information and data. That's a massive ethical problem even now. People are already buying and selling your information as we speak. You know, there's not a single person that doesn't, you know, a single person with a phone in their pocket that's not being tracked, that's not being sold. You know, their IP address is being sold, you know, stuff like that. It's just massive breach of privacy, and you know, I think the standards will be bent and pushed as time moves forward, and eventually, you know, there will be no privacy, kind of like Big Brother from 1984. Fourth one is corruption in the digital world, and its use is becoming, you know, normalized. So just kind of people becoming vile to each other, corrupt, lies, criminals pretending to be good people on the internet, groomers, things like that. Just, it's very corrupt. It feels dirty, you know what I mean? And it's not even physical. It's on the internet. And like I said, as time goes forward, I predict it'll only get worse. So I didn't really have too much positive stuff to say in this slide, as you can tell, but a quote from Haraway that I found really interesting that kind of ties into all of this is, ironies abound, a stressed system goes awry. Its communication processes break down, it fails to recognize the difference between self and other. Human babies with baboon hearts evoke national ethical perplexity. So basically what that means is the loss of boundaries, the loss of boundaries between human and non-human. So we're starting to bend our standards. The boundaries are being pushed as time is going forward. Our technical evolution provokes ethical confusion. Our identities and bodies are no longer just purely natural. There's something about humans now, that's not really natural. It doesn't feel natural, The input that we get is it shouldn't be, we shouldn't be taking all that in at once. Haraway is pointing out here that the ironic chaos and confusion that arise when biological systems, like bodies or even society, are overloaded or pushed past their limits, especially by new technology or scientific intervention. So, future outlook, what I predict, and when it comes to post-humanism and social media, I think our digital existence is expanding and becoming more intense every day. More people are online for longer, more people are logging in, more people are interacting online than in real life, and eventually people won't leave their homes because the computer will be the place they want to be. Humans will have become so desensitized to violence and negative media that, like I said, they'll just crave that next. What can we go? How far can we go? For excitement, for a thrill. What can I put on the telly while I'm with the guys and we're drinking or whatever? That'll really excite us. It's not UFC because it's the year 2035. What are we watching? I'm a big believer in history repeating itself. I think we'll go right back to the gladiators, in a modern kind of sense. And yeah, PEW Research Center believes that by 2035, new threats to rights will arise as privacy becomes harder, if not impossible, to maintain. We are most likely headed towards dystopia, like the science fiction show Black Mirror. Every episode in that show does not have a happy ending. It's not a happy show, and it kind of keeps it real because with the way things are now and how quickly things are advancing, it's kind of hard to shine a light through all those clouds, I believe for the future to have any positive outcomes that lead to a better digital existence and the security of our human rights and privacy, I think one of the only options really is a massive revolution led by citizens and the people, people struggling just to go by day to day. A revolution is probably necessary sometime soon, because if we allow certain governments to just walk all over us and act like they're doing us a favor when really they're just benefiting, and people are not benefiting, people will get sick of it. And it's like that movie A Bug's Life. One ant standing up isn't that bad, but they don't know that if all of them stand up, they have the power to change everything. So hopefully not in a violent way, but hopefully there'll be some sort of revolution in the future where, privacy is kept and human rights aren't changed or the laws aren't bent. We don't have people making themselves into dictators or anything like that. And yeah. So in conclusion, social media is not just a tool for connecting, but it shapes personalities and identities as well. Both ethical challenges and constant monetization make it feel like we are moving closer to post-humanism. Haraway's cyborg is a fantastic metaphor. I love it a lot for the blatant entanglement we find ourselves in with technology and the digital existence. I believe the post-human identity isn't something that may or may not happen in the future, but I believe it is already upon us, and it's only getting faster, and it's only accelerating. These are my works cited, and thank you for listening. Have a good day.